Thanks. As I shared a minute ago, we'll be recording this for your colleagues who aren't able to be here. And with the mix up in the Zoom and all of that, we'll be sure to get that archived and out to all of you for you and your teams. Throughout today, throughout our time together today, we have partners from our associations. I'll be handing it off in a minute to John from OSPI to give you a high-level overview of the work, and then really excited to welcome James Peterson and David Hornak to go into more depth. And then a lot of the time is for you to collaborate in some breakout sessions, and then we'll close up with resources and next steps. I'm super excited to be, some of you may or may not be familiar with the AESD, but we are comprised of the 9 educational service districts. And in this initiative, 3 of our leaders, Dr. Dana Anderson from ESD 113, Kevin Chase from ESD 105, and Darcy Weisner from ESD 103 or 123 are serving the 3 quadrants of the state and supporting districts that are part of the grant program and also districts that are interested in beginning to explore the idea of modified calendars for your school year. So throughout today, you'll get to see a little bit of our partners and learn more from each other. So with that, I would love to turn it over to and welcome John Mishra from OSPI, who is the new Executive Director of Special Programs and Accountability at OSPI. I know all of you have been receiving emails from him as part of the grant program, and I bet many more of you have been a former colleague with him when he was a superintendent in Central Washington. And so, John, I would love to hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining in this afternoon. So, as Jessica stated, I am the modified calendar contact here at OSPI, and I am joining you today from OSPI, which sits on the ancestral lands of the Stace Band of the Squaxin Island people. So first and foremost, thank you attendees for ensuring the safety of our children during these difficult times. Boy, thank you so much for all the work that you do. Your commitment to everyone's safety and well-being is to be commended. Thank you for leading with grace, sympathy, dignity, and respect. So let's talk about modified calendar. On this slide, you'll see how the work folks are engaged in to support student learning is aligned with one of Superintendent Rakedal's priorities. As it states on a slide, a priority is to substantially shrink summer learning loss in the long term and learning loss due to the pandemic in the short term by balancing the school calendar. And to support this work to date, OSPI has allocated over $2 million to support the modified calendar efforts, with plans to continue the support through the next school year. So for sure, this will be money well spent. So we know we can't do this work in isolation. So on this next slide is a list of organizations that are supporting the grantees. We have valuable partner organizations supporting the work, as I said. So thank you to the National Association for Year-Round Education, Association of Education Service Districts, Association of Washington School Principals, Washington State School Directors Association, Washington Education Association, and Washington Association of School Administrators for ongoing support. And now we get into the meat and potatoes here on the next slide. So this shows all the LEAs so far receiving and so this shows all the LEAs receiving the grant and the support ESDs they're assigned to. So since we have 3 main ESDs, we've partnered up. The ESDs have partnered up to provide those support. So right now we have 21 grantees and have funding available for up to 40. So there is funding available for this school year. Planning grant applications are open through December in iGrants, and that is form package 173. So for more information, please access the link bulletin in this PowerPoint, which will be sent out to folks. So thank you for your time. It's my pleasure to turn it over to David Hornak to introduce our guest speaker. David.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to visit with you. And while I'll be coming back to you shortly, and these are extremely challenging times, I'd like to thank you all for your ongoing leadership and service. And it's my hope for the world that we will enter each situation with empathy and care, with the desire and drive to understand by seeking clarity more often. I'd also appreciate your collective interest in learning more about the modified school calendar. And while your readiness and steps moving forward will be unique to you and your context, your pace will also vary in this journey. And we're here for you, and we're here to support you moving forward. And our goal continues to be a learning together and one from another. And what I have been involved with in Washington State is quite impressive. So at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. James M. Peterson, who is the author of several books, including Summer versus School, The Possibilities of the Year-Round School. Dr. Peterson provides a great foundation for anyone considering modifying the school calendar. And although the book subtitle of this particular book references year-round school, his book truly explores several options and things to consider. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see at this point his talking points tonight. And again, you'll hear more from me shortly. Dr. Peterson.
Oh, thank you, David, for inviting me here today to discuss modified calendars and how they can be implemented to address learning loss, not only from summer slide, but also from the effects of COVID-19. My research in this topic goes back to 2009 when I began my doctoral studies at Seton Hall University, but actually it goes back even further when I began my career as an educator in the early 1990s. I started off in education as a paraprofessional, worked in a school that was dedicated for students on the autism spectrum. I noticed then that all the work that was accomplished with these children during the regular school year was not only lost, but in some ways regressed when they returned from their summer breaks. I continued to notice this pattern with many students when I became a high school English teacher and well on into my administrative career. Although I always loved summer vacations, who doesn't? It was then that I started to wonder what the educational advantages of summer breaks actually have for children. The idea of the traditional summer vacation seems to be part of the fabric of our American culture over this last 200 years. And even in this digital age, it still remains one of the great clocks of our society. And there's always been two great barriers that made difficult for schools to be in session for the entire year. One being the vestiges of the agrarian calendar, and the other, the limitations of the actual building facilities themselves. But it wasn't always this way. As early as 1684, a grammar school founded in Massachusetts required 12 months of education. In 1841, Boston schools operated for 244 days, while Philadelphia implemented a 251-day calendar. Most large cities, in fact, around the country commonly had long school years ranging anywhere from 251 to 260 school days, while many of their rural school counterparts were only open about 6 months a year. But by the early 1900s, the perspectives of improving work conditions impacted our schools, with leaders rethinking having students attend buildings during the hot summer months without air conditioning. And the more popular 180-day, 9-month calendar was firmly established. In the 1960s, schools started to implement some calendar reform that fell into two broad categories: those who wanted to have a balanced or modified calendar, and those who needed to address overpopulation of students to maximize their spaces. Those who looked to enhance learning saw many of the benefits that I'm sure that you will all be talking about today, and that you've talked in previous conversations. That benefit that include increased student engagement as well as achievement. For the past 100 years, though, researchers have begun to document what has been referred to as summer fade or summer slide. And that is the decline in student achievement immediately following summer break. A study published in the American Education Research Journal showed 52% of students lost an average of 39% of their total school year during the summer months. Research also shows that more than half of the gap in reading scores between low-income ninth graders and their middle-income peers could be attributed to differences in summer learning accumulated between the 1st and 5th grades So there are many similarities with summer slide and the impacts of COVID, or I will call COVID slide. That is the learning loss that occurred due to the pandemic. In one study, more than 97% of educators reported seeing some learning loss in their students over the past year and a half due to the pandemic. The majority also estimated that their students are behind more than 3 months in their social emotional progress. In one Texas study, students were on average 5 months behind in math and 4 months behind in reading. Some experts even go as far as estimating a total decline of approximately 1/2 of a year's worth of learning lost due to COVID slide. The reasons a modified calendar would benefit any school district include the following: decreasing the existing achievement gaps in the upcoming summer months, providing consistent instruction to remediate existing academic losses, providing scaffolding for specialized populations such as English language learners, at-risk students, and even talented and gifted students who may have missed out on educational opportunities. Instituting SEL components that can address the needs of social and emotional requirements of our children. Lastly, reinvigorating education with a variety of programs that could include the arts as well as other esteem building activities. So I hope the brief overview that has been informative and can support the impetus to moving to a modified calendar. There have been many lessons learned from the pandemic, but as an educator, I found that re-examining how we spend our time, both inside and outside of the classroom, can create a much more efficient system that will greatly benefit the needs of all of our children. Thank you very much for letting me speak to you this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. And folks, I would tell you, Dr. Peterson is extremely accessible. I spoke to him 3 or 4 years ago as we were preparing for the Balanced Calendar Summer Institute here in Holt, Michigan. And he took my call. And just several weeks ago, I reached back out to him. And of course, the first thing he said was, I remember speaking with you several years ago. And so as you're reading his book, towards the end, it says, contact the author. And I urge you to do that. So thank you for your opening comments, my friend. I look forward to collaborating with you moving forward. And if you'd like to stick around tonight, we'll be at this for the next, just less than 90 minutes or so.